Grandy, will you kind of help us set this up? Kyle Shanahan on the TK pod back on July 25th. And this is a comment that many of us think ended up with a sort of a commentary that lacked context on Lance versus Purdy. Again, back on July 25th, what was the question, the basis of what is being discussed here?
Yeah, so Tim Kawakami, the TK show on The Athletic, asked Kyle, at what point do you remember realizing Brock Purdy was something more than you expected? 7th-round rookie, obviously, you don't expect that much. Right. He's getting few reps here in practice. Like, when did you realize that he was something special? So he's talking about last offseason, and there's a line at the end of this cut that you'll hear that people took a little bit out of context, thinking that Kyle Shanahan's talking about the right now, this offseason, but it's about last offseason before you saw what Brock Purdy did in actual NFL games.
Okay, here are the comments from Kyle Shanahan on the TK pod.
You look back to that training camp, you just heard what I said. I really loved how our 7th-round draft pick was playing. That didn't mean I was going to give him the reps Trey was. Mm-hmm. Trey, I saw more in college. We all did. We believed this upside was huge, and we were going to give him every chance to find that, and we were trying to get Brock ready to make a team. Then Trey gets hurt. Jimmy comes back. Jimmy gets hurt, and now you're going with a guy that you think has a chance in this league, but not that you didn't draft him to do this spot. You just believe he has a chance. And then he comes in, and now you go off with what you see. Now it's just very simple football. And what he did week in and week out, each week, by the end, it wasn't a tough decision because he had all the film there. It would be really tough if they did that in practice all the time and there was no game tape. And you're going to make this decision without watching him go into a real NFL game? Like, no, I'm probably going to go with the guy that we invested in more, that we think had the higher upside before we got both, and I'm going to do that. And I still don't know what the right answer is because I can't see it all.
Okay. Yeah. See, that is interesting. You hear it at the end, and if you take it to the present, you're going to have all kinds of questions about this year, but he's talking about that's before Brock Purdy's ever even played. You know what stands out to me is how often he uses the past tense when talking about what they did think Trey Lance was going to be, which leads me down the road of something I've thought all along, which is that now, this is what people have such a hard time with, now they firmly do not believe the same thing that they used to believe about Trey Lance.
I think that's fair. The other thought that I had was Kyle Shanahan saying that a year ago he was thinking, wow, Brock Purdy's better than Trey Lance. Like just just watching them at training camp a year ago. Now he says
it's a hell of an observation,
and maybe we'll play it again. But
yeah, let's listen to it again.
But he says, well, I'm not going to give him Trey's reps, but yeah,
okay,
yeah, go for it.
That's a great observation. Did y'all hear what JD just said? TK show, July 25. This is 3 weeks ago. Is Kyle Shanahan saying that at least based on just practice, last August, remember,
Trey's the starter.
Fred Warner is also in this same training camp looking at Trent Williams going, I can't wait to see what Brock Purdy does tomorrow. Is Kyle Shanahan saying that he didn't have the game tape, so therefore he didn't have the backing to make the call yet, but it really felt and looked to him like Brock Purdy was better than Trey Lance a year ago?
You look back to that training camp, you just heard what I said. I really loved how our 7th-round draft pick was playing. That didn't mean I was going to give him the reps Trey was. Mm-hmm. Trey, I saw more in college. We all did. We believed this upside was huge, and we were going to give him every chance to find that, and we were trying to get Brock ready to make a team. Then Trey gets hurt. Jimmy comes back. Jimmy gets hurt, and now you're going with a guy that you think has a chance in this league, but not that you didn't draft him to do this spot. You just believe he has a chance. And then he comes in, and now you go off with what you see. Now it's just very simple football. And what he did week in and week out, each week, by the end, it wasn't a tough decision because he had all the film there. It would be really tough if they did that in practice all the time and there was no game tape. And you're going to make this decision without watching him go into a real NFL game? Like, no, I'm probably going to go with the guy that we invested in more, that we think had the higher upside before we got both, and I'm going to do that. And I still don't know what the right answer is because I can't see it all.
That's huge. We're going to go with the guy who we've got a lot invested in with the higher upside. Never does he say we're going with the better player. We're going to go with the guy that we've got a lot invested in, who has more upside. Okay? That's telling you that he saw in Brock Purdy what he actually wanted in his quarterback. Couldn't believe it yet, though, because it didn't happen in a game. Now he's watched it happen in 8 games.
And it still wasn't enough to make it an open competition or something like that. And if you listen to the full episode, it also wasn't enough to feel comfortable because he did, with Tim, acknowledge the fact that they liked Purdy enough to keep Purdy on the roster,
sure,
but they didn't truly feel comfortable until they could have Jimmy, like he was going to be. They didn't feel comfortable with Brock being the 2.
Never been an NBA. Never seen a game before.
So when Jimmy became the 2, then it was like, all right, well now they were feeling great about keeping Brock.
Plus, did you hear him talk about how in camp, because we've invested so much, we're going to give Trey Lance every chance to find it. That's an interesting comment. To find it. Trey's searching for it, right? Mm-hmm. And certainly feels very much at this point like he still hasn't found it. You go back to Kyle Shanahan's comments just yesterday. I'd love to see him play more decisive. I'd love to see him play faster. I'd love to see him find it.
And in fairness to Trey, I mean, he didn't get an opportunity to find it last year because he didn't play. Like, I do think, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but when it's like, well, now it's year 3 and he hasn't found it yet. Well, it's not like he stunk the joint up last year.
No, he didn't. He did, like everybody acknowledges the bad breaks to start Trey Lance's career. They also acknowledge, though, that there have been 3 years worth of training camps. And they also acknowledge that the 49ers are in a Super Bowl window and nobody's got time to wait and see if he can find it. You know what I mean? So,
yes.
Dylan in Modesto, you're on with Willard and JD. Hey, Dylan, what you doing?
I'm driving home from work, listening to you guys. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great, man. What's on your mind?
I got season tickets. I go to training camp. I go to practices all the time in the back of the parking lot, wait for the players. And Brock Purdy has to just show me that he could go a whole season. He did pretty good last year. He had some rookie flaws. He kind of holds on to the ball too long, too, in my feeling. But that is what kind of makes him really good, is that he's elusive and could kind of hold on and then read the pocket. So I'm kind of just worried about the durability.
You know what, Dylan, thanks. Let's talk about this for a second, durability, because Jimmy Garoppolo was apparently injury-prone, which is why the 49ers say he's no longer on the team. And now Brock Purdy is got durability issues. All I see is the same thing across the board. Jimmy Garoppolo hurt multiple times. Trey Lance hurt multiple times. Brock Purdy hurt multiple times, although only really once did it knock him out of the game because he broke ribs and stayed in and won 2 football games doing that. This is one of those things that I've long thought. Like, I don't even know how to call someone injury-prone in football. Like, they all get hurt. That was another thing Mooch said when he was on with us a couple of hours ago. He's like, it's really hard to play 17 games.
Yeah.
No matter what position you're in. It's really, really hard. So does he need to show durability? My response to that would be he did. He broke a rib, and he never left, and they never lost. That's durability. Tearing your UCL is one of those that nothing you can do. But Brock has already shown the toughness to be hurt and play through it and play well.
He has. Now, do other injuries continue to pop up? I would file that as in the unknown category. Like, he checked the box of toughness, durability, however you want to categorize it, with the game against Seattle and the ribs and all of that. I agree with you on the elbow injury. That was just a freak play. But over the course of a 17-game season, like, you know, is he going to be somebody that has a groin or ends up,
right,
you know, like we don't know. Because I think one thing we all thought about Jimmy Garoppolo was, well, this guy's tough. This guy's tough.
Yeah, he played through
and
it too.
He was tough.
He did. Yep.
Like but I think we kind of knew that going in. Like, that was the reputation, was that he's tough, even though he hadn't played a lot. Just because you're tough doesn't mean you don't get hurt, and doesn't mean you don't get hurt a lot, and doesn't mean you don't put yourself like is Brock going to be able to avoid injury because part of his thing is escapability. Part of his thing is extending the play.
Turn left and run.
Off schedule. Yeah. You do enough of that, and you're not careful, you're going to take some licks.
Yep.
So,
and he's not a big guy.
And he's not a big guy, which I think also, like, he's nowhere near injury prone. Durable box checked as much as it possibly can be to this point. But that would be something I'd write down in the notebook as, hey, we don't really know the answer to that yet.
Right.
And there's a few things, obviously, like that.
I look at so many of these guys and think about stuff like that. I mean, if you take a lot of hits in the NFL, this can happen. I'm shocked at the way Josh Allen plays football sometimes. I'm shocked that there hasn't been a bigger injury conversation or injury result. I know he's a big guy, but my gosh, the way he plays. Lamar Jackson, he did deal with injury last year. Jalen Hurts, he did deal with injury and missed games last year. This is going to be part of the deal. It just is. So I don't know. Injury prone, sometimes I fall on the side of if you're on a football field, you're injury prone.
Fair.